Greetings, grade 12 geography learners. I trust that you are well. Today we are going to focus on the question 3 of the 2019 examination paper. By now you know that question 3 is a combination of settlement and economic geography, which is your module 3 and your module 4. And as always, the first two questions in every section, or the first two sub-questions in every question, is generally your level 1 kind of question, the matching and the true and false kind of question. And this is where you can score some marks. They're based on concepts. So let's see what we are talking about. Question number 1 talks about the ranking of settlements. All right, it says the ranking of urban settlements from the smallest to the largest. Now, the smallest urban settlement would be the town. And yes, you are right. The largest urban settlement will be the megalopolis. Now, the ranking of the settlements or the classification from smallest to largest is referred to as urban hierarchy. Right, so 1.1.1.1 is C, and that's the urban hierarchy question. Number 2, the settlement that provides goods and services to our surrounding rural population. There's it here, right? And yes, again, you are right, it's going to be our central place. A central place provides goods and services to people living around it. Number 3, the area from where urban settlements draw their customers. In other words, people come from these areas to be able to acquire the services from an urban area, and that would be referred to as our sphere of influence. In other words, the urban areas influence these areas. Right? The urban area has an influence over these areas. 314, minimum number of customers required to make a business profitable. For example, if a tuck shop needs 10 customers to make it viable, then that will be referred to as its threshold population, right? That will be referred to as its threshold population. There's it there. Of course, if you have more than 10 customers, then business is going to do better. And by the same token, if you're going to have less than 10 customers on a regular basis, then this business is going to close down because it's not going to have its minimum number of customers. The next question talks about the maximum distance traveled to purchase a certain goods or to acquire certain services. As you know, the distance traveled will influence your transportation cost. And the further you travel, the greater would be your transportation cost. And therefore, there are some items of goods that will not travel too far to acquire. But the maximum distance you will travel to purchase a certain item is going to be referred to as its range. The type of goods that are purchased on a daily basis, that are purchased on a regular basis, goods that are purchased frequently, are also referred to as convenience goods. And these goods are going to be referred to as your lower order goods, right? So those goods you will purchase on a regular basis. For example, the bread, the butter, the milk, the newspaper are going to be your lower order goods, which you will purchase on a regular basis. Question number 317, few services and functions are available. So this is now referring to a center, a service center, and it's saying in the service center, there are few services available and there are few functions available. And yes, that will be referred to as a lower order service center. Right? A lower order service center provides fewer services and fewer functions. Question number 318, goods and services that are not purchased regularly. In other words, these items are bought infrequently. And yes, again, you are correct. This would be referred to as a higher order goods. Example, cars, the purchasing of cars, the purchasing of clothing, the purchasing of furniture. These examples would be higher order functions. Let's try and build a story around each of these things. And let's see how it's going to work out. So what we are saying that goods and services that are not bought frequently. And for these items, we are willing to travel further to compare prices, to compare quality, and to compare the kind of service we're going to have. So question number 3.1 talks about important concepts. And it's important that we're able to understand each of these concepts, right? Let's keep moving on to our next question. And we're now going to question number 3.2. Now 3.2 is talking about, again, concepts. It says mining is an example of this economic sector. And yes, you are right. Mining would be an example of the primary economic sector. This sector is concerned with the provision of services. And again, the answer is tertiary. Question number 3, the extraction of raw materials from the earth's surface. And there we said mining is the extraction of raw materials from the surface. In the same way, fishing, farming, hunting, forestry are all examples of primary activities, right? So the extraction would be referred to as the primary activity. When we process these raw materials, when we process them, when we manufacture them, when we're adding value to these things, we sometimes use the word benefication when we're adding value, and this would be referred to as a secondary economic activity. And as you can see, in Module 4, we have been speaking of economic geography, of the country's economy. And you know by now that the primary sector, the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector are all parts of our country's economy. They all make a contribution to our country's economy. For example, under the primary sector, we discussed agriculture. We discussed mining. Under the secondary sector, we discussed the industrialized areas in our country, the 4 core areas, and their role in our country's economic development. And then we spoke about the tertiary sector. And here we spoke about the informal trader. So these 3 economic sectors make up the country's economy, right? So back to our questions, the provision of electricity, right? This would be a service and therefore is classified as a tertiary activity. There's the tertiary activity. Question 326, the manufacture of something, right? The manufacture of textiles, it's clothing. The manufacture of footwear, that's shoes. There's your idea of clothing, right? Is going to be a secondary, the manufacture, the making of something. We're adding value to something, right? Benefication was a term we used, secondary concept. This economic sector contributes the least to our country's GDP, right? And this here again is the question of agriculture, the question of mining, hence the answer is going to be primary economic sector. And the reason or the reasons why it contributes the least, for example, agriculture, might be because of droughts, because of floods, because of rural-urban migration, because of mechanization, workers are leaving the farms. And of course, that will lead to food insecurity. When it comes to mining, mining is non-renewable. These minerals may get finished. We can experience mine problems, flooding, droughts, fires, faulting. Or perhaps there's no demand for the minerals that we are now producing because our cost of production is quite high, right? So once again, there's our three economic sectors that we spoke about. Of course, we did speak about the fourth economic activity, and the fourth economic activity refers to the quaternary service. And quaternary services refer to services that deal with high technology, your high-tech services. And these here would now refer to as research. For example, as you know, the medical profession in the entire world is doing research into COVID-19 and trying to find a solution to our invisible virus. Now, once again, boys and girls, I'm going to end this lesson here, and tomorrow I'll do question number 3.3, but I urge you to be able to revise each of these sections on a daily basis. And if that is done, you should be doing well in geography. Just to get back very quickly to our question 3.1, important concepts, sphere of influence, the areas that is served by a central place. I think in class we spoke about the influence that you have over people. You also have a sphere of influence. So the area over which you have an influence. Higher order goods are goods that are bought infrequently, for which you will not travel on a daily basis. These goods will have a higher threshold population. Urban hierarchy is a grading, the classification of settlements from smallest to largest. Lower order goods are goods that you will buy on a daily basis, on a regular basis, for which you will not travel too far because the cost of transport will outweigh the cost of those goods. And of course, these goods are going to have a lower threshold population. Lower order service centers are your tuck shops, where you'll find many of these service centers, and they provide fewer services and fewer functions. In fact, they will provide your lower order services and lower order functions. The range being the maximum distance you will travel. And if you're purchasing higher order goods, you will travel further to compare prices, to compare quality. For example, when we are purchasing clothing, for example, furniture, motor vehicles, we are willing to travel outside of Verulam, where we have a bigger range of service centers, a bigger range of shops to compare our prices and to compare our qualities. Thank you, and do have a pleasant